So, definitions of tribalism from various sources. Tribe and Tribalism, Wikipedia, Merriam-Webster's Dictionary online, Vocabulary Online, and Oxford Dictionary of Sociology. We just want to have these as reference points for discussion. So tribal consciousness and loyalty, especially exaltation of the tribe above other groups. So nationalism falls into this venue. Any political system falls in this venue. Any competitive organizational process, whether for-profit or not-for-profit, falls into this venue. Even religions fall into this venue. Different religions compete with each other for members to their religions. And we're not criticizing any of that. We're describing these collective social dynamics as accurately, precisely, equanimously, and without any judgment of or criticism of any social group, simply saying any social group that's competing with any other social group is competing. And if they're competing, they're not collaborating. And if they're competing, then we would suggest that our world cannot get to a sustainable future via competition. That competition itself, especially in its current virulent and destructive and corrosive mode, is antithetical to global peace, global collaboration, and effective resolution of our global problems. Another definition of tribalism: strong in-group loyalty and the behavior and attitudes that stem from strong loyalty to one's own tribe or social group. Again, it doesn't matter in, for example, a society motivated by cultural tribalism. It doesn't matter whether the Chinese or the Russians or the folks in India or America or in any nation are out for themselves. If they're out for themselves, they're not out for humanity. And if they're out for themselves and humanity, they may not be out for the planet. Meaning if their intention is, and they say, we want to work with all of humanity to use up all the resources on our planet just as fast as we can, that's probably not going to get us to a sustainable future. The next item, the state of living in a tribe is tribalism. And this word is used to describe situations where people are overly loyal to their own group or focused, I'm adding here, focused on the benefit of their own group to the exclusion of other groups, or competitively in regard to other groups, or even might choose to destroy or damage another group of people, whether for profit, for market share, for national or international standing, for political benefit or goals to be achieved. And tribalism does tend to lead, in many cases, to either bigotry or racism or prejudices or polarization or judgmentalness, and when taken to extremes, even war. So things that tend to generate tribalism are the presence of arms or guns or weapons, illiteracy, we would agree with weak power of state, and also a non-alignment with service to humanity intention of the whatever the system of governance we're speaking of. And also the lack of some form of spiritual orientation. They're saying religious faith here. We would suggest that the history of religions has led to conflict and abuse. We would also suggest that spirituality in some form tends to give people faith. It tends to give people a sense of oneness, and it tends to offer them a path to, hopefully, to peaceful coexistence. So any of these can be double-edged swords, so to speak. Tribal leaders, either leaders who focus on developing tribalistic vantage points, or they tend to generate tribal conflicts because they're looking out for a specific agenda or a set of priorities or values or belief system or support to their group to the exclusion of others. We're not suggesting they don't have good intention. Many, many, many do. The question is, if everybody in the world is broken up into tribes and they're all competing, at what point do they choose to work together? And by what process? Yes, and we must start out by saying the WSS and the social movement engine, a team of teams, are apolitical, meaning we don't have any political leanings. We have no political judgments of anyone, of any group. And that said, any subset of humanity that operates in an us first is going to mean them, whoever they are, second, which is a non-collaborative approach. Now, if people say, well, human beings have always been competitive and tribal, they're always going to be competitive and tribal, why should we try to change anything? It's not worth trying to change tribalistic dynamics in humanity as a species, not to mention nations or political systems. If they take that approach, then we're simply going to compete ourselves potentially into oblivion or to set back our species as a collective. Either as the likelihood, I'm not saying it's an absolute, the likelihood is that we will have a significant diminishment of population at some point on the planet, or a war, or a conflict over resources that are scarce, simply because competitive tribalism is deemed the name of the game on this planet rather than conscious collaboration. So if people are educated by any means, whether it's a political means, whether it's a online on the internet means, whether it's a religious means, whether it's an institutionalized educational means, if they're educated to recognize the necessity and benefit of conscious collaboration, transcendent of competition and competitive dynamics and tribal dynamics overall, then they can connect the dots and they can say, well, if we all do continue to operate in these competitive tribalized ways, and also in judgment of these tribal ways, meaning we are fostering in the WSS and social movement engine process equanimity and non-judgmental love, unconditional love. That doesn't mean advocating violence. It doesn't mean advocating competition. It means doing our best to understand those who operate from competitive vantage points or violent or angry or wounded vantage points in order to help them heal, recognize the necessity and benefit of conscious collaboration, to understand the benefit of working collaboratively rather than competitively. And in order for that to occur, if the knee-jerk tendency in human beings to judge and punish each other for not agreeing with our points of view must be transcended. All judgmental dynamics are always driven by an underlying fear of something. Either they're going to get more than we're going to get, they're going to get ours, they're going to take from us, or they won't treat us well, and we fear and mistrust them because we don't know them. So helping everybody understand everybody else is part and parcel to this whole process. If we understand everybody else's positionalities, their perspectives, their cultures, their values, their priorities, then we also facilitate conscious collaboration, then we have the potential to enhance the potential for negotiation to occur, peace to occur, conscious collaboration to occur, solutions to problems to occur at scale within nations and globally. So these days, these polarized political system dynamics, these polarized social system and cultural system dynamics are escalating in intensity and in terms of their dysfunction producing dynamics. People become focused on achieving their goals to the exclusion of everyone else's needs and benefits, and they do so out of fear and out of misunderstanding and misinformation. So the social movement engine, one of its key core processes is to have a storehouse or a database of accurate, true, factual information that is not agendified, it's not spun, it's not politicized, it's not a single source of information. It is integrated, it is synthesized, it is vetted for accuracy, and is constantly updated by all contributors, so that there will be a source of information for people to make quality decisions from, in a collaborative way, not to support their political tribe or their social tribe or their cultural tribe or their national tribe, to support global, conscious, collaborative effort that is harmonious, humane, loving, kind, caring, effective, efficient, intelligent, and sustainable. So just finishing up the discussion on tribalism, there's a new word, neo-tribalism, which is basically modern tribalism rather than historical tribalism. If we evolve the tribe, we just get unconscious tribe 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. If we complexify a tribe, we're just making it more challenging to transcend tribe. Just as if you've seen individuals who are very highly educated, very knowledgeable, maybe experts in their field, and they still operate from personality and ego, competitiveness, tribal dynamics, polarization, judgmentalness, and conditional love. All of that complexification of the ego process and mind process within those individuals actually creates a more challenging dynamic to involve them in conscious collaboration, because they're wanting to compete and to prove themselves or to attain a specific goal of status, power, money in the world, rather than truly solving problems in the world in such a way as to serve the benefit of every human being in the world. So that's an evolving conversation and process. We're hoping to create the developmental crucible or the facilitative mechanism to bring all of those people together and literally learn from scratch how to collaborate in a whole new way that's far more efficient, far more effective, far more peaceful, far more egoless than has ever occurred on our planet in traditional venues in the past. And the last item on this, yes, spiritual egos are one of the types of ego. You can have spiritual ego, expert ego, personality ego, multiple kinds of egos. And anyone that is spiritually educated may consider themselves spiritually evolved. We would suggest that that's not necessarily the case. Spiritual ego can turn into judgmentalness, status seeking, betterness, specialness, diminishment of others who are supposedly not as conscious or as spiritually evolved as the supposedly spiritually attained person, or groups. So groups can have spiritual ego as well as individuals. We are in the social movement engine and WSS process constantly working to dissolve all ego, including spiritual ego. Thank you for that excellent comment, because it is quite easy to inadvertently fall into such dynamics. The antidote to all of that is humility on all people's parts, and humility is not humiliation, and it is challenging for humility to occur, and it must occur intentionally if it's not been modeled throughout at least all of one's lifetime and embodied. Because with humility, we're open to learning. With humility, we're open to seeing other people's vantage points. With humility, we transcend the tendency to react to or project onto others. Absolutely. Forgiveness of self and other constantly is a requirement in that process. So any felt sense that our system or anybody have, or them personally, or any group they're affiliated with as being better, smarter, more spiritually evolved, more educationally evolved, greater expertise, more emotionally evolved, I'm more loving than they are, I'm higher in some way, that we would suggest that those are illusory, and they're simply coping mechanisms for the ego process in order to maintain self-esteem, feel better about ourselves, and they absolutely are glass ceilings in our developmental process. And they hold back our evolution of consciousness as individuals, groups, teams, collectives, and nations, and of course as a species in general. So tribalism is a group ego process in operation that is not recognized to be a group ego process in operation. So all of us have some of these conditioned in tendencies, whether it's via Stockholm syndrome impressed upon us by parents, family, our town, our culture, our religion. And none of this is wrong. None of it's a problem. And it's training wheels in our evolutionary process as human beings and as groups of human beings. And we must transcend those training wheels as soon as we feasibly can, if we want to transcend them. And we agree that it is an outgrowth of our animal nature, and we're going to describe and discuss that hopefully in the next slides.